So as I mentioned, tonight's meeting is a community information meeting for the Kapapolea area, the Kapahu Street Rockfall improvements, as well as Iaukea Street drainage improvements. We do have a little bit of milig kuleana, and for those of you who have participated in our planning office's beneficiary consultation meetings, this will look very familiar to you. We ask, number one, that everyone be respectful of the person talking, whether it's someone from the department, our consultants, or other beneficiaries. When we do get to the Q&A portion, we may ask questions in the chat box, or if the meeting seems fairly small, we might be able to just unmute and ask questions. But as your meeting facilitator, I'll be inviting you to ask questions along the way. And when you are addressing other participants, either verbally or in the chat box, we just ask that you be respectful and show aloha at all times and treat others how you would like to be treated as well. Now, throughout the conversation, there's going to be moments where we agree, and there's going to be moments where we disagree. And we find it okay that we can agree to disagree as well, as long as we're not disagreeable to each other. And lastly, we ask that everyone have an open mind, and we hope that you take home some new ideas or information this evening. And especially with regard to this project, we hope that we provide as much information as we can for you guys. So that was just a little bit of milig kuleana for tonight. Once again, this is the project that we are looking at. And fortunately for me, I think this is the part of the meeting where I get to hand off the controls to G70 to sort of walk us through the rest of the project. And I am running the slides, so they'll just say next slide when it's time for them to move on. All right, and I think I'm handing this over to Ryan.
Great. Thank you, Cedric. Again, hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Char. I am a principal civil engineer at G70, or Group 70 International. We are a architecture, engineering, interior design planning firm that has been very fortunate to do a lot of work with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and this is one of our projects here that Department of Hawaiian Homelands Land Development Division has contracted G70 to work on. We are consultants, so I am a professional licensed engineer. I have Kahealani Winchester on the call here, who is serving as my project manager on this project. I'm the principal overseeing the project, but we're both civil engineers in Hawaii, and we've for this project built a team of other folks, and so we've used a project surveyor, a firm called Control Point, as well as a geotechnical engineer, a firm called Geolabs Incorporated. And so that rounds out G70's project team on this particular work here on the slopes of this hillside between Iaukea and Kapahu Street. As you can see up on the slideshow, there is a figure, and I apologize if it's a little hard to see. If Cedric can blow it up a little bit more, that'd be great. But if not, then we'll all use our eyes, but squint a little bit. But I'll just describe basically all of the different components of this project as best I can, and try to keep this very simple and straightforward and easy to understand. But again, there will be time for questions as well later during the presentation. So for those attending here, I'm not sure if you, I think this invite went out to all of the community in Papakolea, but for those, if you might be near here or living along the stretch of this project, you'll know which rock face that we're talking about. So quite a vertical rock face here, about 100 feet plus tall. Quite a large bunch of boulders. A lot of boulders have been falling down this hillside over the last few years with some of the heavy rains. DHHL in the early 2000s had done a rockfall protection fence at the bottom of this slope that follows the back of the lots, basically from I think it's 2136 Kapahu Street, where that purple line, it's really hard to see kind of, but that purple line goes. And so there is an existing rockfall protection fence there. And again, that was built in the early 2000s. Since then, the rocks have been falling and the fence has been doing its job. But at this point, there have been quite a bit of debris that has built up to that point on the fence. And so part of this project, first of all, is going to be clearing that debris and removing that rocks, those boulders, and restoring that rockfall protection fence. Repairing any of the top rails, the bottom rails, the mesh, any of the posts that need to be repaired, that will be kind of the first part of this project. After that, we will be then installing what is called a draped anchored mesh, or a draped wire mesh or an anchored wire mesh rockfall protection system. And for folks who are familiar with the rockfall protection system on Kabahu Street that was recently also built, it's going to be a very, very similar system, and that is outlined in that cyan blue color. You're not seeing the vertical component, but it looks small, obviously, from a bird's eye view, but with the vertical component is quite a bit of actual mesh that's going to be installed. Where it is draped, which is actually on the two sides, you see two vertical cyan lines kind of breaking this up into three different sections. On the far sides, the outsides, those will be, I believe, anchored wired, draped wired mesh. So that will be anchored in at the top and the bottom only. In the middle, it'll be an anchored wire mesh system where it will actually be anchored entirely on an even spacing that will, a contractor will need to drill into the face and provide concrete or grouted anchors into the slope, and then they'll tie in that mesh using those anchors. But either way, you'll see this fence, this kind of mesh system. It's an interlocking mesh that just falls over this raw face. Prior to installing the mesh, they're going to do some rock scaling. So they're going to remove any loose rocks. They'll do that with a professional scaler that will rappel down the slope and make sure that as they scale, nothing huge is falling down, impacting any of the homes below. They will also be clearing the vegetation along the face. So I know there's quite a few large trees that will need to be removed. So those will be cut and poisoned. And then there'll be some other brush clearing as well. So that's kind of, really the meat of the project. But because we want to make sure that this project is going to last a long time, we know that water intrusion is something that is causing some of this rock to fall. And so we are also proposing to do some drainage improvements, what we're terming drainage improvements, but really is a cutoff ditch or concrete swale, which is basically a kind of a cutoff ditch or a diversion ditch above the anchored mesh at the top. So behind the homes on Kapahu Street, there will be a concrete gutter, I guess you could best call it, that will slope in various directions, but will convey water away from the top of the slope, prevent it from flowing down the slope, and will then be collected and put into the city's storm drain system. There are two storm drain lines on the two sides of this project, both on the left and the right, where we will be able to tie in and put some of this stormwater runoff, so it doesn't flow down the face of the slope. And so that's kind of the bulk of the project, but knowing that, this is a very tight and confined space, access is going to be something that needs to be very coordinated and planned out very well with the lessees and the occupants here in these homes. You see some yellow boxes and some pink boxes here shown on this figure. The yellow boxes are areas that we've identified as the consultant and through some outreach with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands as temporary construction accesses to these areas of work. And so obviously with the vertical change, we'll need access from both the top of Kapahu Street and at the bottom along Kapahu Street. And so you'll see various access points proposed here on this plan. The areas in pink, and there's a couple of overlapping ones on Kapahu Street, and there's just one pink on Kapahu Street. Those are proposed to be permanent access points for the future maintenance of this anchored mesh system. Obviously, as this project goes in and it's all constructed, once it's completed, it needs to be maintained. And the department is hoping to reserve here and in the process of reserving about 12-foot wide access pathways to the top and the bottom of the slope. The plan would be then for the department to be able to access the rest of the project area just through these access points, either going behind the existing rockfall protection fence on the bottom or behind some of the lots on the top. This is, and I know this is not immediately related to this project, but in the future, there will be upcoming sewer rehabilitation work that needs to occur. There is a sewer line behind the lots on Kapahu Street. And so some of these access points will definitely facilitate those future work that the department does need to do. Where we do have permanent access points, we have, as G7 and Department of Hawaiian Homelands, tried our best to match those up with existing encumbrances on these lots. So on the top and right, there are both existing storm drain easements in favor of the city and county of Honolulu. And so we are really trying to make this project as minimally impactful to the lessees here. But obviously for this project, there is not going to be a way where we can avoid any impact. So just be aware and accommodating. I think because this is such a big safety issue for folks with falling rocks, this is something the department has put a lot of priority into. And so the next slides are actually going to focus in on the access of to get to the areas that need to have work done, which again includes primarily the installation of the draped and anchored wire mesh system and the concrete gutter and ditch, cutoff ditch on the top of Kapahu Street. But I do want to just note at the very bottom, you have an engineer's estimate here of what this might cost the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. So it's not private information. This is something that the department is committing to here. Then is something that is being funded by the department. So with that, I'll ask Cedric here to go to the next slide, because we do have some pictures and some exhibits of what some of the impacts will be from these access points to these lots. And so first you're seeing the upper left portion of the project on Kapahu Street. There is two access points here, a permanent access point that's being proposed on the left that kind of follows an existing drainage easement, and then a temporary access way on the right that hopefully Cedric will bring back here. And you're seeing that with that kind of gridded pattern on the right. And this one, actually, I think, we've had some outreach already with the owners of 601 Kapahu Street, as well as 605 Kapahu Street. So if you go to the next slide, Cedric, you'll see a picture here of what this might look like. There is an existing driveway that will be utilized for construction. And then I think there's another slide after this, Cedric, if you want to advance one more. There is an empty lot here at 605 Kapahu Street. I know the lessee here has plans to build a new home, but at this point in time, they do not have any immediate plans to build. And so the department would like to utilize this empty lot, obviously, to minimize disruption to any of the lessees in a more significant way. I would point out, as part of this project and as part of the construction plans that have been developed, and as part of the request for proposals from contractors that have been initiated to the contracting community, the contractors will be responsible to restore these access points to their original or better condition. Obviously, if you have heavy construction traffic coming in here and it damages a sidewalk or a pavement, or it damages a wall or curb, then it is on the contractor's responsibility to fix. In many instances, and I think we'll get to other lots here, the contractors may be required and will be required to remove fences. I know a lot of The homes here have perimeter fences, whether that's chain link or other. They will be replacing them where they need to remove them to provide access. As part of these accesses, the project, the contractor is required to meet all city and county ordinances regarding erosion control. So they will be laying down gravel and providing stabilized construction entrances and exits that will prevent dirt from tracking onto the street. They will also be responsible for making sure that there is no erosion or erosion is minimized during the course of construction through other various means like silt fences or fiber socks that hold back water and sediment. And so we're really trying to be as environmentally sensitive here as possible as well. In instances where the department will need to remove fences and replace fences, where there is a permanent access point planned, the department will likely place a 12-foot wide or something close to that size chain link fence gate to allow future access in the future, again, as we discussed with future projects or future maintenance that might need to occur on this Rockfall area and with the sewer line. Cedric, if you could advance to the next one. And I'm following along here on the here you're seeing again this particular condition at 605 Kapahu Street, where it is basically an empty lot. So easy for the contractor here to use this area as a staging and equipment laydown area. But obviously this is we start with the easiest. We're gonna get to some of the more complicated areas here in a bit. Cedric, next slide, please. Next slide, please. There you go. This picture again is, if you could go back real quick. Up. I'm seeing a couple of slides down.
Actually, Brian, do you have the deck on your screen? Would it be easy for you to share it?
I don't know if it's my internet or not, but I could also share it here.
Let me give you the controls so you can go share. Let's see how that goes.
Sure. So I'm gonna
thank you everybody for your
this over here. And so can you see that there?
Yep.
Great. So I'll try to make this full screen. Where's full screen? I've always been really bad at Bluebeam sometimes. I am just gonna zoom in here. Actually, you know what? I apologize. Sorry. Let me go to a different screen here. Because that was not working so well. All right, can you see that? Cedric, does that work?
Yeah, I can see it. Folks on the call, are you guys able to see? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
My name is Punani Richards, born and raised in Papakolea, and I received a card in the office, and I just got to connect 10 minutes ago, so I missed the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of this is because the mountainside is unstable, right? And if done, it can cause problems to the homes in Kewalo area.
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh.
And so we are recording this, so it'll be on the same website where you found the Zoom information to dial into the meeting. We will have a recording of this presentation available, so you can go back to the beginning and watch. Aloha ka Butch. And then, so Ryan from G70 is going to go ahead and finish out the presentation, and then we can come back in for a little bit more Q&A at the end, if that's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so I just wanted to, and that's a kind of a good reminder here of, this is the condition of the slope behind 605 Kapahu Street. And so you can see quite a bit of debris. You're seeing rocks kind of come and go here. There's a lot of falling rocks kind of going down to the bottom of this slope. And so this mesh will prevent and hold that rock face in place. We're kind of shifting over here to the very top left of the project, which is furthest uphill of Kapahu Street, 653. And this is the further north side, Mauka side of the project. And you'll see another access point here to provide access to the back of the slope. And so this will obviously impact a side yard of this particular property. But again, it's something that for the purposes of this project is absolutely needed. I'll just point out here, as you can kind of see on the left-hand side of this exhibit, at 647 Kapahu, you see the lessee here has built a wall up to the property line, obviously, and that's something that we've noticed and tried to protect in as much situations as possible. You can see a little portion of the concrete drainage gutter going behind here. And so we're really trying to stay away from that, the existing improvements that the lessees have installed. That being said, like I mentioned, there'll be situations where things will need to be removed, things will need to be replaced, fences will need to be adjusted. You'll see in many of these homes on Kapahu Street on the top, I know a lot of the lessees have backyards and they go out there, obviously they use them. There will be, from the top of the slope, approximately 5 feet or more in, will be these sets of anchors that is going to anchor this mesh into the ground. And so in some instances, people have fence very far behind that line, so it won't impact them, right? They'll have their fence, it'll be replaced after construction if it needs to be removed, and that anchor will be on the other side of the fence. In some instances where the slope really comes up to the back of these properties, the anchors they physically cannot go any closer to the face of the slope because we won't be able to hold them in place. So you'll see anchors that may impact some of the improvements that are in the backyards of these properties. And it is for the safety of everyone, I think, involved here on this project to stabilize this slope. And so you're basically kind of seeing what this is really looking like. This is not the slope where folks are walking. This is still on the top of the slope. The mesh will continue probably start right where that line of trees is. And so these are just some more of the pictures and things that the contractors will need to deal with on this project. For temporary construction access on the bottom here on Kapahu Street, again, we've got access provided to the back of these lots. In this sense, it's a little easier because there is a rockfall protection fence. You see it kind of in the back here, right in the dark shadow of this area. The disturbance is going to be a little bit less impactful because you've already got a fence back there that is delineating that line of work. And so there wouldn't be really any work in front of that fence except where there needs to be access points. And so here we're proposing one access point because again, it's relatively clear. I think this is another temporary construction access point, but back up on the top of the hillside, a little out of order here on Kapahu Street. So again, really trying to keep where we can find areas between homes and fences so we're not disturbing a lot of people's lots. This will be another temporary one that will be restored. Again, so we've talked a little bit about the fences behind folks' lots, what might happen here for the contractor to access this area where they need to put in a concrete gutter most likely on the left of the fence here, so out of folks' yards, but sometimes it may be in the yard, in the back. We are trying to do that, and the fences will be replaced. It is important to note that there is a sewer easement back here, so that's why some of this area is already kind of reserved anyway for some of these utilities and infrastructure. Back down to Kapahu Street, I think this is a permanent access point. You're seeing the rockfall fence back here, and then again, we're really trying to select the areas, and so there again, there is no real selection criteria more than what is the least impactful and the most cost effective for the department here in providing the access that the contractor needs to reach this slope in the back. And so this is the kind of the layout of that access point on 2136 Kapahu Street. You're seeing here the existing rockfall protection fence. You see how close some of this vegetation has really got to in it. Again, as I mentioned at the very start of this presentation, the initial scope will be to clear behind this rockfall fence, remove the boulders that have fallen, repair any of the rails and posts that need to be repaired, and get that back up to a better functioning condition. In the permanent condition, both the mesh and this fence will remain, so it'll provide a little bit of extra protection here for these lessees. And so with that, Cedric, that kind of finishes up my presentation of the project and these access points. I know there's probably going to be some questions and coordinations. Again, the department, I think, and be happy for you to follow up here, but department is dedicated to working with all of you to make sure that this project is well coordinated and there are no surprises during construction. So with that, Cedric, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Actually, can you go back to the slide that has the map of the entire area? I think it's one of the first slides.
There you go.
The overhead shot. Yeah. Okay. And then we did have a question in the chat from Pua, and I think she was asking a specific question about the dashed lines on the on one of the maps, but more importantly, I think she wanted you to see, are you able to point out where the anchors are going to be on this map?
Sorry, I muted myself. I will do my best, but if we are to kind of, let me get out of presentation mode here. If we were kind of zoom in here, this back of this blue line is basically the top of the slope. So if you can imagine the slope from all of these lots there, it's kind of benched down, and I might have plans, but it's kind of benched down as it heads down here. And then from the top of the slope behind that about 5 feet, and you're really not going to see it in the scope of this high level figure, but just 5 feet back from here is where the first row of anchors would probably start. I don't believe, and Kahea, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it goes much farther than 5 feet. So that will be I think in many instances, the only row of anchors at the top. And I'm sorry, I think at the beginning I was able to scroll in a little bit better. On the outside is the anchored system, which is going to be anchored at specific points along the entire face. And in the middle is the drape section, where this is just going to be anchored at the top and on the bottom. In orange, you see here a little bit in better detail is where this concrete swell. And again, please, this is an aerial image that has been used to prepare this figure. This is not a survey grade document, but this orange is where the concrete ditch and existing, I'm sorry, it's where the existing sewer easement is. So there's a sewer line under this area. And in all instances, the concrete swale is staying on, except for this area on the left here, the concrete swale will stay makai of that sewer easement. So the concrete swale is, or concrete ditch or gutter, is going to be what's in red here. So this will be pretty much as close as we can get it to the top of the slope without making the construction of this swale too difficult. This gutter needs to be, it's kind of like your curb and gutter on the street. It needs to be poured by, it's poured in concrete, needs to be formed. Contractors need to be able to get to it and access it without falling over. And we definitely don't want the swale to erode either and fall down the top of the slope. So this alignment of this red line of this concrete gutter has been chosen quite carefully, and you can see us trying to avoid people's walls and other things. We'll be able to kind of thread the needle behind this deck, but we are, trying our best here to both get this in without impacting each of the lessees, but also, again, also understanding that there needs to be access and maintenance to this mesh, and there needs to be future work within this sewer line that is in the center of this double orange line that you're seeing back here. So really trying to minimize that impact by staying makai of the existing sewer line and easement.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. I don't see any other additional questions in the chat. So I wanted to open up the floor for anyone on the call who may want to unmute. And if there's any questions right now, it's a good time for us to go ahead and see if we can, take in your questions. And if we have the answers now, Ryan and the team could go ahead and respond. Otherwise, we can circle back to you. But is there anyone right now who might have some questions for the team?
And actually, Cedric, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Puanani Maunu, and I live at 2210 Anianiku Street. It's the one on the far right. But I had a couple of questions about the fence or the wire mesh. Like, I'm trying to envision what it looks like. So is it like a vertical fence with a horizontal mesh in between within that blue lines, or what does it look like? Or if you could just describe the fence, the vertical, I guess what the wire mesh looks like. If it's going to be vertical, and so if so, how tall? And then is there also going to be like a wire mesh in between those two lines that are holding back the rock face or the face of the mountain? I live on the very right. My house is on Anianiku Street on the bottom very right, and I was trying to imagine what it looks like.
No, great question. And so I'm trying to pull up another set of plans here. So it's
where?
See, here, let me show this real quickly.
That's the guy that came to our house.
And so if you'll see here, this is the wire mesh, and so it's close together. It's literally kind of a mesh. It's a flexible mesh. And where it's anchored, again, you'll see on 8-foot typical spacing, there's anchors driven into the rock face that hold this in, and they're grouted. So if you were to kind of look at something in say maybe like this one here, the draped one or the anchored one here, the 5-foot again at the top is where they'll anchor in, and they will just drape this over the slope, and they will need to anchor this again in at the bottom. So it's kind of, they pick a black color. So it's kind of, at some point you really don't really see it because it's so finely spaced. Where it is anchored, sometimes you can see that anchor point. You see a little, they're almost like little circles on the rock face. But again, we'll use something that's a little better color. I mean, so it's going to be like a black color. At some point, with the way that vegetation kind of grows and things happens, you really don't really see that happening. You don't really see it, especially when it's kind of far away. So this is kind of the best way that it kind of looks.
Actually, that really
just so
helps
you know.
to see that. Thank you. And then you said that the vegetation trees, that scrub was going to be cleared, but is there going to be vegetation that grows back, or is it just going to be like this bare rock face that we're going to see? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, so the best way to describe it is like on Owailimu Street, they did a very similar rockfall mesh project, and then some of that bushy grass is starting to grow back in and into it. The point I think would be is that there really shouldn't be any large trees growing through this mesh. The department will need to make sure that if there are anything that kind of takes root, that they're removed. The existing vegetation will be moved, so it will look very bare initially. They are going to kind of scale it. They're going to cut it. They're going to trim it. They're going to poison it where they need to poison it. Build a root system so there's a less of a chance having to grow back. The trees and the vegetation is what the roots cause the rocks to dislodge, right? And so you really don't want any vegetation in there. Now, you know, we know it doesn't necessarily look the nicest, but really the vegetation is not a good thing for any kind of slopeless that's real vertical. And so I'll just say that, you know, sometimes what will kind of happen is that this bushy grass, the tall grass, kind of guinea grass or whatever it might be, it might grow through the mesh. And the department is going to have to kind of continually come in and do some maintenance on that throughout the life of the project. But you really wouldn't be seeing some of the larger trees that are there currently. And I know there are quite a few large trees that have kind of grown out of this area. The vegetation on the top, you know, we'll do our best. The contractor will do his best to protect the vegetation from the top beyond the mesh system.
Okay, and I hate to be the one like monopolizing this conversation, and I just have a couple more questions. So my apologies to Ikalamai. I was wondering if the department or the design team has considered like a shallow root plant to plant in its place, so that won't be impactful to loosening the rocks, but can provide a nice covering for that hillside, because I think losing the trees will really impact like the heat that comes down. And I don't know, if it leaves it bare, then, you know, the rocks may continue to fall. But the thing that comes to my mind is something like night blooming cirrus that has a real shallow root system, or some shallow root system native plant that can be replace whatever is being removed, so it doesn't look so brown. Just a comment and sort of question. Or
and sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, I was on mute. I try to get back on the drone. There's just not going to be a lot of soil. This is basically, they're going to clear the face to rock, competent rock. So they're going to scale and remove loose rock. There's not a lot of soil to plant anything. It's just really kind of ultimately what comes back is the grasses that find their way into the cracks. So in terms of seeding, there isn't really an opportunity here to seed. If the slope was more of a kind of an engineered slope that you see along some of the embankments on the highways, we could have done maybe a little bit of a different system that could have held back some of that soil to seed it. But in many instances, this is going to be almost vertical. I think that was a good idea, but I think this project would be hard to do that.
Thank you, Ryan. We did have a question here in the chat with regard to how much of an impact are lessees. I believe there's 3 lessees on Kapahu Street. Would you be able to speak to sort of the impact down over there?
So definitely here on the right, I think this address is on Kapahu Street. So they, definitely will see contractors back here scaling this face, removing the vegetation. this anchored wire mesh is gonna go basically, there is a drain line that comes down here. You kind of see it in this, it's very light green. I'll try to zoom in again. There is a drain line here. So right where this kind of this green vegetation comes down and the existing rockfall fences, you're still going to see anchored wire mesh back here. And so contractors will be coming through this area, not through this one. This is a permanent access. The construction access will be in this yellow. They'll work behind the fence and they'll get to this point behind the fence, clearing and scaling, and then installing that rock mesh. On the right here, you'll definitely, this unit is quite a bit higher than Anianiku Street. The driveway is quite steep and there's some stairs here. So it's almost as if this lot and this lot are kind of on the same or closer elevations to the back of 653 Kabahu Street. So you may get some contractors kind of back here in this zone doing some work, trying to get this concrete swale in and basically trenched in a drain connection into that drain line here. There will be a catch basin, a drain inlet that will core into the city's existing storm drain system here. So you'll definitely hear a lot of noise. You'll hear a lot of digging, very light machinery, because I don't think the contractor will be able to get anything heavy back here, but you'll definitely see some of that from the lessees here on the right of this green line. But really, there shouldn't be a ton of work here until I think there's a sewer easement here again, until the department at some point in the future has to rehabilitate this sewer.
Thank you, Ryan. There is a question about trash in the wooded area above the cliff and whether or not we're going to be able to pick that up. I'm not sure if that's within the scope of work that we put out there, but if it is, we'll make sure it's addressed. If it's not, we'll figure out a solution afterwards. But good to know that there is trash there and some things that we're going to have to deal with once the construction begins. And I do want to highlight that we've put this project out to bid, and we should have bid results coming available soon. And once we do have some of that information and we're able to put together a construction schedule, we will be sending mail back out to impacted lessees so that all of you are aware as to what the schedule and what the timeline looks like, and when different construction work will occur near your homestead lot. Okay.
Hi, Cedric. I'm sorry to interrupt.
All good.
I have some questions if you don't mind.
Of course.
Okay, my name is Butch Ramos. We live at 2132 Kapahu Street. A couple of things. First question for Ryan is: was G70 involved in the original project?
The G70 was not involved in the original project, but our geotechnical engineer, GeoLabs, was involved in the original rockfall protection fence project.
So are you guys associated with them?
They are our subconsultant, so we have contracted them on this project, yes.
I'm not sure about anybody else, but I was there from day one. And a couple of things. We talked about the same thing from day one. This fence you're putting up is kind of engineering mumbo jumbo. What would work was the fence that you're talking about, but with the kind of rocks that are above the properties, that is a joke. You need to put on the same kind of fencing they did like in Waimea Bay, or that they did in Kalawahini when the rocks started falling. Because the rocks that are going to fall are not 1 foot boulders. And I kind of take offense to the fact that you said there have been a lot of rocks falling. I know the neighbors. Nobody has said that there have been 4 foot rocks, 8 foot rocks falling down. and that's in 20 years. So I think that you should not put chain link on the ground, but you should really look at something that is going to be stopping the rocks that are going to fall.
So is that, so you're saying something more like the vertical fencing at the bottom of the slopes
No, I thought
that like
was
in Waimea Bay?
well, not the chain link fencing that you're going to use. I think is a good idea, but the size of the fence that you're talking about that's on Arroyo Limo is too small. It's another waste of $5 million, like the original project was. I mean, if you go back and research it, that original project that was done was the most overrun project that Hawaiian Homelands had ever done. It was in the newspaper. So I hope we're not doing the same thing where we're putting Band-Aid on something that needs a cast.
But that project never happened, did it?
It did. I mean, the project that with the fence and all that, and there was also some drainage areas that they created a new drain across the street. That was done, and it originally came in. It was done by Perfecto, and it was originally done at X number of dollars. And every week they came in with change orders. And at the end of everything, that project ended up being the most expensive overrun project Hawaiian Homelands had ever done. When you talk about maintenance, I would like somebody to put this in writing, because in 20 years, you know how many times Hawaiian Homelands has come to clean up the back of the properties? Let me give you a hint. You don't need to use any hands, because that's how many times they came to clean the rocks and all of the halicoa that has grown over there in the last 20 years. Okay, zero.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the maintenance goes.
Yeah.
Now, Cedric, I really appreciate you giving me that message today, but I think that the people that are directly affected by the project, we should have been brought into like a conference room or something, so we could, because ultimately we're the ones that are going to be affected, and more so me. Okay, because now you're taking, now you're saying you want to take 12 feet of my property. But let's go back to the original project. And Cedric, if I get winded, you just tell me to stop, because I want to follow all the rules that you set forth before the meeting started, okay?
Yep.
But Cedric and I went through this. The original project sounded good. There was an egress and ingress and in and out on either side, okay? So they could come with their machines, go up one side, push the dirt and everything, all the other rubbish out the other side. But do you know what you guys did? Because one of my neighbors knew all of the people at Hawaiian Homelands, he said, hey, if you guys take 12 feet from my property, I cannot build the house that I want to build. So you know what they told him? No problem. Just build your wall over there. So now there is no way to get out the dirt that's there. And on the other side, on the Anianiku side, there is no gate to go in over there again. So they're going to have to take property from somebody else. I'm the innocent guy over here, okay? You let somebody else who drinks beer with the right people not to screw up that whole project. And I have the original plans to that project. So now there is no way in and out right now, other than the gates. So as far as I'm concerned, you are not going to take 12 feet from my property. If you want to clean it back there, each property has a gate. You guys come in there and cut the grass, to do whatever you guys want, and carry it all out.
So on that, Uncle Butch, couple of things. So I called as many phone numbers as I had available in our system to make sure that I invited people to this conversation, because we have, we want to move forward. the department's very confident with the plan that G70 is got on deck for us here. We think that this is really going to be able to resolve the situation. Now, we hear loud and clear that while if we invest this type of money into mitigating the situation as it is right now, we also have to make sure that we put this on a maintenance schedule. So our Public Works Division, and Stuart's on the line right now, as the department has been petitioning more and more to get more steady funding, part of that is to have repair and maintenance schedules for work that we do. Because the last thing you want us to do is put this thing in and then we don't take care of it and it doesn't do its job over the course of a 20, 25-year period. So I hear you loud and clear on that. So we're going to make sure that that's going to go in.
Cedric,
yes.
Cedric, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You send me a letter, okay, about all the big rocks that are falling. Even in my yard, okay, my lot is 120 feet wide, okay? I have maybe 3 rocks the size of a football that have fallen in 20 years. You are now spending another $5 million estimated, because by the time this thing is over, I guarantee you it's going to be like the rail. It's going to be $10 million. And because there's so few houses that are going to be affected, why don't you split that $5 million up, give each of us $1 million, so in case there's any damage, we can fix our own houses.
There'll be more houses than what we have allotted. What we want to make sure, and I do agree with you, I hear what you're saying. It hasn't been a problem. You know, you had the one boulder, fell down, hit your car, maybe a couple.
But that, I'm sorry, Cedric, that happened when they were doing the project, because what they did then was cut back the rocks too far.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer, so I can't say the proper words, but they said that they cut too deep into the base, and that's what caused the rock to fall. And I did find the picture, so I'll get it to you next week.
Good.
The rock, I'm 5'6", and the rock was bigger than me.
And so I think it's prudent for the department to proceed forward and make this investment and do this fix. Even if nothing happens, at least we did it and we proceeded forward. Because I think the worst thing that could happen is we don't do the project and then something happens. When we have the funding, we have the authorization, we've got good plans from a good engineer. Now we just got to get a construction crew in there to get the work done. And so I do agree that we needed to get everybody together. And that's one of the reasons why I pushed to have this virtual meeting, is to disclose as much information as we have available. Because, you know, we're sending letters, but not, you know, we don't know if everybody's getting them. We send the postcards to invite, you know, there's only a handful of people on the call. We're going to publish this to our website, because the last thing we want to have happen is someone say, oh, I didn't know. The department didn't inform me. So at least I'm doing everything that I can to get the word.
You have done more than that should be expected of you. But you know what? I don't care what you do. You can go up to every guy and tell him, come on the computer thing, because half the people might not have computers. I'm at my daughter's house because I didn't know what the hell to do. I would not have known how to get on the computer and do all that. That's why the really affected people, we all should have been in like a big conference room or something, not conference room, but like an auditorium. So we all can be socially distanced and we all can talk story over there. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if you want to use my property to go in and out when you're doing a project, I will cooperate with you people. But if you're telling me this is going to be a permanent easement, because at this point, my plans are to move my house into that 12-foot area so that I have a bigger yard, because we're going to subdivide so my daughter can build a house on the other side. But if you're going to tell me, well, there's an easement there, it's not going to work, because
the yellow box where we put the temporary access.
Yep. If it's temporary, I will cooperate with you, Cedric.
Currently, right now, we heard you loud and clear. Temporary access point is right there. That's why it's not in purple, it's in yellow.
Yeah. Temporary, you guys can do it. But if it becomes permanent, because if you guys, Hawaiian Homelands, didn't allow other people to put a wall up and break up your egress, we wouldn't have this problem today. That thing would have been there to make the project work.
I hear you.
with that, Cedric, you and me can talk story and drink beer later on, but I've said what I want to say. One last thing.
Right.
According to the rules of Hawaiian Homelands, if you guys take any property, not property, but if you take any, I don't know what the word is, but if you take anything from us that was there, like walls,
Yes.
you guys should compensate us for that.
Yeah.
And, you know, in 20 years, we still haven't had compensation. And you and I can talk about that later, though.
Main thing, so I think important for everybody so that everyone's in the loop. The department's always gonna adhere to whatever is in the lease document. So if easements need to be exercised, if your improvements are damaged, as Ryan was mentioning earlier, we're gonna have to take down some fences on the Kapahu Street side. We're gonna replace them. So if there's improvements that are impacted, we're gonna work with the lessees. But I think the important takeaway is that whatever is contained within a homesteader's lease document is what the department will abide by. And
and that's all the lessees can hope for. But if it's there, you and I have to agree. If it's there, both parties have to adhere to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no deputy attorney general on this call, and I'm sure they'd be
I already called Iggy. He's listening in on this, okay?
But main thing is lessees should know that the lease document is what DHHL and the lessee will work off of.
Yep.
Okay. I want to give an opportunity for anyone else who may want to unmute and ask any questions at this time. And Pua, I do want to let you know that I got your voicemails right before I left the office, but I didn't call you because you gave me the thumbs up that you're okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there going to be a maintenance contract for keeping the grasses short and the area cleaned? Or I mean, how is it going to happen? I know it's.
Yeah, well, our Public Works Division, once the project is completed, this will be handed over to DHHL's Public Works Division to address maintenance of the mesh wall primarily, to make sure that the installation of that wire mesh is sound. The vegetation, if it does get overgrown, will be addressed as well. But I think that's to Ryan's earlier point. We're going to remove any vegetation with systems in order to protect the side of the mountain. And Stuart, you can jump in anytime.
Cedric, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So, we do have, around the island maintenance contracts for a lot of different locations, which require cutting the grass, trimming trees, fixing sidewalks. And so this is another one that will be added to that, basically to that inventory. We have a maintenance contract for Awaiulimu Slope. And I thought that it was maybe recently completed. So we go in there anywhere 3 to 6 months. It really depends upon the weather and the growth of the vegetation. So we try to stay on top of it, and we will attempt to do similar for this area. And I want to also say that prior to the construction, the contractor will have to document all of the existing improvements that are there, especially the houses that are close by, just so that everyone can be clear on what the condition is, and in case there is damage, that we want to be able to make sure we have all of that documented, so that lessees can be protected, and as well as the contractor too. So we want to make sure that everyone maintains their kuleana in this area, and that's typically what we do on all contracts. Is look at the existing improvements, even such things like the sidewalks. So if the contractor's equipment damages a sidewalk, then we're going to have to have the contractor make the improvements or bring it back to its original or better condition. Also, to just the point, when construction is going on, that there will be times when there will be parking restricted. So in order to have good access for equipment going in and out of both Kapahu and Iokea Street. So prior to the construction, we will have on-site meetings with the contractor and the residents there.
Thank you, Stuart. So one of the questions coming in from the chat says there's been a lot of emphasis on the project to protect the bottom of Kapahu. What about the top side of the cliff side? So I'm wondering if that top side meaning the residents on. You can unmute if you would like to ask the question too.
That might have been Stuart.
Okay.
But I'll answer the question here. So in addition to the mesh, wire mesh, extending 5 feet minimum from the top of the slope, and then being anchored in with a concrete drilled kind of rebar grouted anchor. The best thing we can do to protect the top of the slope is to divert water away from it. And that's why this concrete gutter is being installed at the top of the slope. And so that's the best way to protect it.
Right, because if we can minimize how that water gets down into the rocks, it'll make it more stable.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions at this time? This is a good time to go ahead and chime in. Okay. I do want to remind everybody that this presentation, PowerPoint, or the presentation itself, as well as a recording of this meeting, will be available on the website where you found the dial-in information for tonight's meeting. And I'm hoping that for those of you who are on the call today, please share with your neighbors that this information is available. They should have received some correspondence from DHHL. We're going to continue to post the construction schedule and information on our website. Just want to make sure that we disclose as much information about this project to all of you as possible. We won't have an estimate for a schedule just yet, Pua. The bids are just coming in right now. So once the review team is able to review them, identify the best offer to the state, then we will come back out and we will post the bid results as well as the who the final award is to, what construction company, and then we'll come back out to the community with the contractor and the construction schedule. And as Stuart was saying earlier, you know, things like an inventory of improvements and so on and so forth will be occurring thereafter. Okay. And then through the department's website, you can always get a hold of us through our contact center phone number. We have an email on our website. If you go to the dhhl.hawaii.gov and scroll to the bottom, there is a contact us page. You can always reach us there for questions. A lot of inquiries come up to my office, so I might be the one to return your call or one of the contractors. But I think the big takeaway for those of you on the call and any of your neighbors is that this project is important. While you know, we want to make sure that we get it all done. We've got the funding, we've got the authorization, we've got plans, and we want to work together with the community to make sure that you're informed and that we get this project done in a efficient and quality manner. Okay.
I'm sorry, Cedric. Let me just say one last thing. This is to Ryan. I was very serious when I asked you to double check to make sense, to see if it makes sense to use the same chain link fence that you used on Awaiolimo versus the bigger ones like you did out in Waimea Bay or in Kalawahini. Because if something happens in the future and it went through that chain link fence, somebody's going to be responsible for it. Because I don't believe that that's going to hold back the kind of rocks that are going to be falling. With that, you and I can talk later, Cedric, but thank you very much for calling me again today. I appreciate that.
I wanted to make sure that everybody knew, saw the postcard, knew about the meeting, and our team will confer with the engineers on the plans, okay?
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, with that, we'll do one last call for questions, and if not, we can say aloha to everybody. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for taking your time out on a Thursday evening to hear from DHHL. We appreciate all of your time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will be sure to be in touch as this project proceeds forward. Mahalo nui, and have a good evening.